The wind cut through the night like a blade. The alien moon hung low, glowing a sickly silver over the jagged cliffs of Vanar Prime. Below, the valleys were alive with movement. Creatures with glowing eyes darted between crystal-like trees, and distant flashes of light marked the patrol routes of alien soldiers. Somewhere in that endless wild, a man moved like a shadow. His name was Jack Mercer, and tonight, he was hunting secrets. Jack's boots pressed softly against the frost-covered ground. Each step was measured, calculated, as if even the earth could betray him. His visor reflected data streams from his wrist console, heat signatures, terrain scans, encrypted communication bursts. Somewhere ahead was his target, a hidden alien facility rumored to hold information the human army would kill to possess. But Jack's mind was not on the mission alone. There was weight in his chest, a heaviness he could never shake. He had been a spy for too long. He had worn too many faces, spoken too many lies. And though he would never admit it, some part of him wanted this mission to be his last. The sound of movement snapped him back to the present. Not the calculated hum of machines, not the rhythm of patrol boots. This was something frantic, something running. Jack dropped to one knee, rifle raised, eyes narrowing on the source. A shape burst from the treeline, stumbling, clutching its side. At first, he thought it was a soldier. Then the moonlight caught her face. She was young, at least by human standards, with skin that shimmered faintly like starlight and long, silver-white hair matted with blood. Her eyes were bright, almost too bright, glowing like twin fragments of a dying sun. And in those eyes, Jack saw something he had not seen in years: fear. She collapsed against a tree, gasping for air. Behind her, voices rose, sharp, guttural tones of an alien language Jack did not fully understand. Hunters. They were close. Jack's training told him to stay hidden. His mission was clear, but some instinct pulled him forward. Before he could stop himself, he moved. One silent dash, one strong arm catching her before she hit the ground. She flinched at his touch, but she was too weak to fight. "Stay quiet," he whispered, though he knew she likely did not understand. Her eyes met his, and something flickered there. She touched his wrist, not as a plea, not as a warning, but something else. The contact was brief, almost accidental. Yet in that single touch, Jack felt it, like a door opening inside his head. Images slammed into him, not his own but hers. A burning city, soldiers marching under banners of black, a young girl crying as everything she knew turned to ash. Then, just as suddenly, the images shifted. They were his memories now. Jack's breath caught. He saw himself through her eyes. Missions carried out in silence, targets eliminated, names crossed off lists. He saw the faces of those who had trusted him before he betrayed them. He saw the blood on his hands, the lies, the cold efficiency. And still, she did not let go. When her hand fell away, she was trembling. But there was no hatred in her face, only understanding. The hunters were closer now, their voices sharp, weapons ready. Jack made a choice. He lifted the girl into his arms and melted into the shadows. The forest was alive with the sound of pursuit. Jack moved fast but silent, his body low, each step a controlled burst of motion. The girl was light in his arms, but the blood soaking through her side told him she would not survive long without help. Branches snapped behind him. The hunters were closing in. They were not just soldiers. Jack could hear the sharp clicking of claws on stone, the deep growls of trained beasts. Whoever wanted this girl was serious. He ducked behind a ridge of glowing stone, lowering her gently. Her breathing was ragged, and every exhale came with a small sound of pain. She opened her eyes and fixed them on him. Her lips moved, and a single word came out, broken but clear. "Selira." Jack almost did not answer. He never gave names on missions. But something in her voice made him break his own rule. "Jack," he said. It felt strange to say it out loud. Selira touched his hand again, weaker this time. A single pulse of warmth shot through him. A flash, quick but sharp, cut into his mind. He saw a tall alien figure with armor black as night, and eyes like molten steel. Selira was running. Soldiers were shouting. And the same armored figure raised a blade over her head. Jack blinked, and the vision was gone. She was telling him something without words. She was showing him what hunted her. A loud shriek echoed behind them. The beasts had caught their scent. Jack swore under his breath and scanned the ridge. Ahead was a drop that fell into a narrow ravine. Risky, but better than getting torn apart. He scooped her up and jumped. They hit the slope hard, sliding through dust and rock, but Jack kept them upright. At the bottom, the ravine stretched like a dark vein through the alien earth. Perfect cover. He moved deeper, keeping close to the walls. The glow from Selira's skin was faint, but enough to make the air around them seem less dead. Minutes turned to an hour. The hunters' voices faded, though not completely. They were sweeping the area. Jack stopped to check Selira's wound. The cut was deep, but not mortal if he could keep her stable. He pulled a field pack from his belt and sealed the wound with a thin layer of medical foam. Selira winced, but stayed quiet. Her gaze lingered on him, and Jack felt it again, that strange pull. He was trained to resist every kind of mind probe, but this was different. It was not invasive. It was curious, gentle. She was not digging for weakness. She was trying to understand him, and that unsettled him more than a weapon pointed at his head. Finally, they found a hollow under a slab of rock. Jack set her down. The night was cold, and she shivered slightly. Without thinking, he pulled off his cloak and wrapped it around her. She looked surprised, then gave a small nod of thanks. No words, but it was enough. Jack sat back against the wall, scanning the darkness. "Who are they?" he asked quietly, though he knew she might not answer. Selira touched his hand once more, and this time the images came slower, softer. A city of white towers rising under two suns. A council of beings, tall and proud, speaking in voices that shook the air. And then war, ships burning, soldiers falling, families running. Her people were dying. And then she showed him something else. A machine, ancient and vast, hidden deep within mountains of crystal. A light at its core, pulsing like a heartbeat. She was guarding something. Something important. Jack pulled his hand away uneasy. He was not here to save anyone. He was here to gather intel, to break systems, to win a war. But something about Selira's eyes told him this mission was already changing. The sound of footsteps returned, closer this time. Jack's body tensed. A shadow moved across the ravine, slow and deliberate. Not a beast. A soldier. Armor glinted under the moonlight, long blade in hand. Jack cursed silently and raised his rifle. One shot, clean and quiet, dropped the soldier before he could sound an alarm. But now they would know someone else was here. Jack turned to Selira. "We cannot stay." He lifted her again. This time, she did not resist. She leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. And though she said nothing, he felt her fear, her trust, and something else, a quiet hope. He did not want to feel it, but he did. And for the first time in years, Jack Mercer wondered if this mission was going to be the one that broke him. The night seemed endless, but the sense of danger only grew sharper. Jack carried Selira deeper into the ravine, every sound amplified in the quiet. His mind kept racing, running through the mission, the risk, the unknown. But one thing was clear. She was not just some fugitive. There was a reason she was being hunted, and that reason might be bigger than any intel he had ever carried. They reached a point where the ravine split into two paths. Jack crouched low, letting Selira lean against the wall for support. She was pale, her breath uneven, but her eyes were steady. She pointed to the left path. No words, just a gesture. Jack studied her face, and then the terrain. The left path was narrow, half hidden by hanging vines of crystal-like plants. The right path was wider, easier to move through, but also more exposed. He trusted his training, but something in her gaze made him choose the left. The path closed around them like a throat. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, carved into the stone long before either of them were born. Jack brushed his hand across one as he passed. It felt warm, as if alive. He kept his rifle up, eyes scanning. Selira stopped him with a gentle touch on his arm. Her fingers trembled, but her face was calm. She leaned close, whispering something soft in her own tongue. He could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. Warning. He held his breath and listened. A faint hum vibrated through the ground, low and steady. Then came the metallic scrape of boots. They were not alone. Jack pressed Selira against the wall and signaled for silence. A moment later, 3 figures appeared at the far end of the path. They moved with precision, weapons drawn, their armor dark and jagged. Their helmets were shaped like the skulls of predators, and glowing slits for eyes cut through the darkness. They were not scouts. They were hunters. Jack waited until they were close. Then he struck. One silent shot took down the first. The second raised a blade, but Jack was faster, a knife sliding under the joint of its armor. The third lunged, but Selira, even injured, raised her hand. A wave of light burst from her palm. It was not blinding, but it was enough. The soldier froze as if stunned, giving Jack the opening to finish him. When it was over, the silence returned, heavy and sharp. Jack turned to Selira. Her glow was dimmer now, and her hand shook. Whatever power she had, it cost her. "You did good," Jack said softly. He surprised himself with the warmth in his voice. They moved again, slower now. Jack could feel her weakening, and the weight of their situation pressed on him. They were deep in enemy territory, hunted, and carrying secrets neither fully understood. But every time he thought about turning back, he remembered that first touch, the rush of memories, the way she had seen every dark corner of his mind and not turned away. Hours passed. The terrain changed, and the air grew colder. They emerged into a valley covered with strange plants, their stalks tall and luminous, swaying as if in a wind Jack could not feel. At the center of the valley stood something unexpected, a structure half buried in the earth, covered in vines and glowing symbols. It was not like the alien military tech he had seen before. This was older, ancient. Selira's eyes lit up, even through her pain. She moved from his arms, unsteady but determined. Her hand brushed the symbols as if greeting an old friend. Jack followed, rifle ready. "What is this place?" he asked, knowing she could not answer. But she turned, her expression serious, and placed her hand over his. Again, the visions came. A great hall of light, a core of energy beating like a heart. Her people gathered around it, as if worshipping something sacred. Then war came, and the light dimmed. She showed him herself, younger, standing guard before it as soldiers approached. Her duty had always been to protect it. Now that duty was broken. Jack stepped back, the meaning sinking in. Whatever this place was, it mattered. And now it was tied to his mission whether he liked it or not. A low growl broke the moment. From the shadows, shapes moved. Not soldiers. Beasts. Their bodies sleek and armored, jaws lined with serrated teeth. Eyes glowing with hunger. The hunters had unleashed their hounds. Jack pulled Selira close. "Stay behind me," he said. The first beast lunged, fast as a bullet. Jack fired, the shot echoing through the valley. The others spread out, circling. Jack's mind went cold, calculating. Limited ammo, unknown numbers, injured ally. Odds were bad. But then he felt it, a small hand gripping his sleeve. He looked down. Selira's eyes burned with light. She was not afraid. The first beast hit the ground, sliding lifeless across the glowing plants. But its pack did not slow. They fanned out, circling, growls rising like a drumbeat. Jack's rifle swung from target to target, but he knew he would run out of shots before they ran out of teeth. Selira stood just behind him, one hand pressed to the wound on her side, the other clenched as if ready to strike again. The light in her skin was brighter now, a soft pulse running through it like a heartbeat. "Stay down," Jack said, not knowing if she understood, but hoping his tone carried the meaning. He fired again, dropping a second beast. Another leapt from the side, jaws wide. Jack rolled, fired, and caught it midair, but the shot was messy. The creature screamed and kept moving. Jack braced himself for impact, but Selira stepped forward, her hand shooting out. The light from her palm exploded into a thin wave, not blinding, but sharp. The beast froze mid-lunge, suspended for half a second before crashing to the ground. Jack stared. She was shaking now, drained, but her eyes were calm. She had done it before, but this was stronger. There was no time to ask questions. More beasts poured into the valley. Jack fired, moved, ducked, and fired again. For every one that fell, two more appeared. They were faster than any animal he had fought before, their bodies sleek, built for speed and power. The air filled with snarls, the ground shook with their weight. Jack's mind worked fast, scanning for an exit, but there was none. Selira moved toward the structure, her steps slow but steady. She placed her hand on the wall, tracing the symbols like she knew them by heart. The stone responded, glowing brighter with each touch. Something deep below them rumbled. Jack shouted for her to stay back, but she did not listen. She pressed both hands against the wall, and the ground lit up in veins of blue light. The beasts hesitated, growls turning into uneasy whines. The ancient structure woke. A low hum rolled through the valley, deep and powerful. The glowing plants swayed harder, their light bending toward Selira as if answering a call. The beast stopped, ears twitching, bodies tense. Jack watched, torn between fear and awe. Selira's voice rose, soft and melodic, words in a tongue he did not know. The symbols burned brighter, the air trembled. The beast growled, stepped back, then turned and fled. When the last growl faded, silence returned, thick and unreal. Jack lowered his rifle slowly. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. He had seen war, machines, death, but never this. He turned to Selira. She looked fragile, her body swaying, sweat beading on her brow. When he moved to catch her, she smiled faintly, a tired but warm smile, and whispered his name. He held her up as she leaned against him. "What is this place?" he asked again, his voice softer now. She touched his hand, and the visions came, but this time they were slower, more deliberate. He saw her world before the war, cities of light, skies alive with ships, people who lived with energy as part of their being. Then came the invaders, the black-armored figures he had seen before, burning and taking. Selira was chosen to protect something, a core, a heart of power. The structure was not just a ruin. It was a key, a weapon, maybe, or a promise. And then he saw something else, humans. His own army. Ships in orbit, commanders at tables, maps with red lines drawn across alien soil. Plans to destroy what little was left. The vision ended. Jack's chest tightened. He was a spy, sent to break and take. She knew it now. She had seen the orders. But when he looked at her, there was no anger. Only trust. That was worse. It made him feel heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. Selira touched his shoulder and pointed to the structure's heart. A stairway descended into darkness, lined with glowing veins of light. Whatever she needed was down there, and they would not get another chance. Jack hesitated, scanning the valley one last time. The beasts were gone, but the soldiers would come. The gunfire and the light show would bring them running. He looked at Selira, at her tired but steady eyes. "Let's finish this," he said. They moved together into the stairway. The air grew colder, thicker, as they went down. The sounds of the surface faded until there was only the hum of the core below. The stairs opened into a vast chamber, and Jack stopped, his breath catching. It was like standing inside a star. At the center was a sphere of pure energy, suspended above the ground, surrounded by strange machines that seemed to grow from the stone. The light pulsed slow and heavy, like a sleeping giant. And carved around the walls were the faces of Selira's people, frozen in silent watch. Selira stepped forward, awe softening her every move. She reached toward the core, and Jack felt something shift, not in the room, but inside himself. He did not know if it was fear or hope, but he knew this. If she touched that core, everything would change. Jack's pulse quickened as Selira stepped closer to the glowing core. The chamber was alive, humming softly like a living heart. Each step she took seemed to wake the room, symbols on the walls flaring to life. Jack stayed close, his rifle ready, though he felt almost foolish carrying it here. This was not a battlefield. It felt sacred, ancient. Selira reached the edge of the platform and stopped. She looked back at Jack, her face pale but calm, and lifted her hand. Slowly, she placed her fingers on his. The rush came again, not violent this time, but steady and deep. He saw more of her story, clearer than ever. Her people had been guardians, protectors of a power they barely understood. The core was not a weapon in the usual sense. It was life itself, a source of energy that could heal worlds or destroy them. When the invaders came, they wanted this power. Selira was chosen to keep it safe, to make sure it did not fall into the wrong hands. She had failed to hold the walls, but she had survived. And now she needed someone strong enough to finish what she started. Jack pulled his hand back, uneasy. He was trained to see opportunities, not miracles. His orders were still clear. Anything that could shift the war had to be reported, taken, or destroyed. If command knew about this, they would not hesitate to seize it. And yet, standing here, watching Selira trust him with everything, the thought of turning this place over to anyone else felt wrong. A sound broke the moment. A faint click of boots on stone, distant but unmistakable. Jack's instincts flared. They were not alone anymore. Selira heard it too. She turned, her glow dimming slightly. Jack signaled for silence and moved toward the shadows near the entrance. From the stairway, dark shapes emerged, soldiers in black armor, their steps slow and careful, weapons raised. At least 5, maybe more behind them. At their center walked a tall figure, his armor heavier, trimmed with crimson. His visor reflected the core's light like blood on steel. Jack knew that stance. A commander. And judging by how the others moved, this was no ordinary unit. The commander spoke in a sharp alien tongue, his voice echoing coldly in the chamber. Selira stiffened, her face tightening. She stepped forward, but Jack stopped her with a hand on her arm. "No," he whispered. "Not now." The commander raised a hand, and the soldiers spread out, cutting off their escape. The message was clear. They wanted Selira, and they would kill to get her. Jack weighed his options fast. He could fight, but the odds were terrible. He could try to use the core as leverage, but he did not know what it could do. Or he could run, but there was nowhere to run to. Selira surprised him. She stepped around him, her shoulders straight despite her wounds, and faced the commander. She said something, her voice steady, almost defiant. The commander laughed, a sound that carried no humor. He gave a short order. The soldiers raised their weapons. Jack's body moved before his mind could catch up. He fired the first shot. It hit the nearest soldier, dropping him instantly. Chaos exploded. Blades and gunfire filled the chamber. Jack dragged Selira behind the platform, returning fire, every movement sharp and clean. 2 soldiers fell, but the others kept coming, fast and relentless. Then the core reacted. It flared, a sudden surge of light and sound. The ground shook. The machines around it came alive, their edges unfolding like wings. Selira gasped and reached toward it, but Jack grabbed her wrist. "What are you doing?" he shouted. She met his eyes. For the first time, she spoke in words he understood. Her voice was soft but clear. "Trust me." The soldiers closed in. The commander raised his weapon, aiming straight at them. Jack saw the muzzle flare, and then the light swallowed everything. A wave of energy burst from the core, not heat, not fire, but force. The soldiers were thrown back as if caught in a storm. The commander staggered, his weapon torn from his hands. Jack felt himself lifted, weightless, then slammed back onto the platform. When the light faded, the chamber was changed. The soldiers were scattered, weapons broken, the commander pinned under a fallen column. Selira stood in the center, the core's glow running through her veins. She looked stronger, her wound closed, her presence commanding. Jack stared. He had seen fighters, leaders, even legends. But he had never seen anything like this. Selira turned to him, her expression calm but sad. She walked to him and touched his face lightly. Images spilled again, this time of futures, not memories. He saw battles won and lost, worlds burning and rebuilt. He saw himself standing at a crossroads, always with her, always choosing. She showed him one final vision, his own army descending, ready to take the core by force, ready to destroy her people. And then she let the image go. The chamber fell quiet again. Jack's chest rose and fell fast, his mind torn. His mission was still his mission, but everything had changed. Selira's voice was soft. "Now you know. What will you do?" Jack looked at her, his breath still uneven. The glow around Selira dimmed, but did not fade. She stood steady, her wound healed, her eyes fixed on him as if she could see straight through his thoughts. The sound of metal shifting echoed behind them. The commander was still alive, struggling to free himself from the fallen stone. His soldiers were beginning to move, groaning, gathering what weapons they could. They were not done, and Jack knew others would come. The blast of energy had surely alerted everyone within miles. Selira stepped closer, her voice calm but weighted. "They will not stop. Your army will not stop. If they take this, they will burn everything." Jack's throat tightened. She was right. He had seen what his people did with power. He had been the one to make it happen more than once. And now he stood between 2 choices. His orders, or her trust. The commander shouted something harsh and pointed at Selira. 2 soldiers raised their rifles. Jack did not hesitate. He moved faster than thought, dropping both with clean shots. Then he turned his gun on the commander. The man froze, his glowing visor facing Jack like a mirror. "This is done," Jack said. He did not know if the alien could understand, but the meaning was clear. Selira placed a hand on Jack's arm. "They will keep coming. This place cannot stay hidden." Jack looked around the chamber. The core pulsed steadily, a calm giant waiting to be stirred. He remembered the visions she had shown him, worlds rebuilt, energy that could heal, but also destroy. Power like this would not stay untouched for long. What happens if they get it? Jack asked. They will turn it into a weapon, Selira said quietly. And your people will do the same. There will be no end. Jack studied her. She was telling him to do what he had always been trained to do, in the mission. But this was different. This was not a target. This was a life, a culture, a future. He stepped closer to the core, feeling its hum through his boots. It was not just power. It was something alive, almost aware. And for some reason, it seemed to be waiting for them. Selira joined him, standing close enough that he could feel the warmth coming off her skin. If it must be hidden again, it must be sealed. No army can ever use it. Jack glanced at her. How? She gave a small, sad smile. You already know. The realization hit him. The blast earlier had been a taste of what the core could do. It could seal itself away, but it needed a living mind to guide it. A sacrifice. No, Jack said at once. You are not doing that. Selira's eyes softened. It is my duty. My people would have done the same. Jack shook his head. Not happening. You found me. You trusted me. I am not letting you die for this. The sound of footsteps came again. More soldiers were pouring into the stairway. Time was gone. Selira touched his chest, her fingers light. Jack Mercer, you have done terrible things. You have carried heavy shadows. But I saw your memories, and I saw your heart. You can choose what you were meant to be. Jack stared at her, feeling something tighten in his throat. She believed him. She believed in him, even knowing everything he had done. Tell me what to do, he said. Selira's smile grew warmer. Stand with me. They faced the core together. She placed one hand on its glowing surface, then took his hand and guided it beside hers. The hum grew louder, the light brighter. Energy surged up Jack's arm, burning but not painful. He could feel Selira's thoughts, calm and steady, guiding his. The soldiers burst into the chamber, weapons raised. The commander shouted. Too late. The core opened like a star, releasing a wave of pure energy. The blast shook the mountain, light spilling through cracks in the walls. The soldiers were thrown back, their weapons useless. The commander screamed as the wave swallowed him whole. But at the center, it was calm. Jack felt himself and Selira becoming part of something larger. The energy was rewriting itself, folding, sealing. He understood then. This was not an ending. It was a lock. Together they were closing the door so no one could open it again. The light faded slowly, leaving only a quiet glow. The soldiers were gone. The stairway collapsed, sealing the chamber. The core now looked dormant, a silent stone heart. Jack and Selira stood before it, alive, breathing hard but unbroken. Selira turned to him, her face peaceful. It is safe now. They will not find it again. Jack gave a short laugh, more of relief than humor. Good. Because I am done running. She tilted her head. What will you do now? Jack looked at her, really looked at her. For once, there were no lies, no orders, no masks. Just the truth. Whatever keeps you alive. Selira's smile was soft, and for the first time, free of sadness. She reached for his hand, and this time the touch was light, simple. No memories, no visions. Just two people standing in the quiet. Above them, the night waited, and the war raged on. But deep below, in that hidden chamber, something had changed. A spy had found a reason to believe. An alien girl had found someone who would choose trust over blood. And together, they walked toward the surface, ready for whatever came next.